Hey, Facebook. Hey, everyone. Howard Jacobson here, Chief of Behavioral Science at WellStart Health, co-author of Sick to Fit. Trying a little experiment, trying this in the evening. It's 8 p.m. Eastern, and we'll see what people think about a not in the middle of the day set of ideas and thoughts that I wanted to share with you today. So the impetus for what I want to talk about. I'm going to talk about it fairly briefly because I could go into a lot of detail, and I'm still sort of just kind of working out how I'm thinking about this. But it comes from a book that I just started listening to in the middle. My wife is listening to it, and we took a trip together, and so she kept listening, and I was just fascinated from the first few sentences that I heard. It's by Monica, I think it's Gaglione. She's a researcher in Australia, and she studies plant communications, like how plants talk to each other, how they listen, plants and sound. And it's a science book, and it's also kind of a book of spirituality. And when I started listening, she was talking about how humans relate to what she calls the vegetal world, the world of plants. And says there's sort of two ways that we look at things. One is the way of ownership, and the other is the way of stewardship. And these are both very common terms in sort of Christian theology. Those people who are owners of things are often called rich in spirit, and those who are stewards are called poor in spirit, which is, I guess, a better thing to be. And so that got me thinking about how we relate to our own bodies. And I kind of came up with like 6 different words that can kind of form a little bit of a hierarchy. And this is just sort of scratch, but I kind of wanted to put out there just to hear myself think about it and to see what you guys think. So comments, reactions, questions, thoughts would be awesome. So our relationships to our own bodies, and this could be could be your relationship to anything. So my relationship to X, anything in the world, I've listed sort of 6 different possibilities here. So one of them is like complete separation. So like it has nothing to do with me, or it's not me. So I think about this when I walk down my street. I go for walks quite often on my street, and I find beer cans, Mike's Hard Lemonade, fast food wrappers, cigarettes, cigarette packages, or the butts of cigarettes. And those are people who don't live on my street, or if they do, they don't care what the street looks like. So they're separate from it. And it's characterized by a kind of apathy, a kind of neglect, and in many cases an outright disrespect. So we know people who have that sort of relationship to their own bodies. And it's typically a response to trauma, to feel like this body is not my home. It's not where I want to be. It's not what I care about. I'm going to, live somewhere else and, live in Second Life or on Facebook or immersed in some other video game, or going to check out because of drugs, or I'm going to chase sexual relationships with others so that I don't have to be present for myself. And we see this in the way people feed their bodies, in the same way that people litter on my street. A lot of people litter, litter their own bodies. And it's a hard thing to watch. And those times where I have come closest, I don't think I've ever been there 100% in terms of my own body as a place that I feel completely separate from. But the times when I feel closest to that feels really horrible. And there's no joy in there. There's just the constant grasping for any sort of jolly that's going to get me out of the existential despair that I can feel from not having a home in this flesh and guts and bones. So that's the first stage of separation. Second one, I was thinking sort of rental, right? Like you can rent something, and if I rent something, it's not mine, but I have to, I might put it down as security deposit. I've rented apartments and houses in my life, and typically I'll put down a security deposit. And all I have to do to get it back is not trash the place. So there's a minimal set of responsibilities, and they can be temporary responsibilities as well. But, it's certainly not something that I care about long term, sort of to be in a rental relationship. And a rental relationship with our bodies, I think, is where a lot of people are. Well, this is, because it's temporary. Excuse me. Or if you think, well, I'm sort of, when you're young, like I'm immortal, whatever I do to this, I haven't thought too hard about this, but there is this sort of intermediate relationship between not mine and mine, where it's sort of mine for a little while. I'll take care of it to the extent that it pleases me, and then I can get my security deposit back. But it's certainly not a long-term caring relationship. Which brings us to the third level, and I think these are sort of moving up in quality. The third level I call ownership, and this is mine. So this body here is mine, and that implies like I can do what I please with it. So in a sense, ownership is sometimes not that different from separation, in that I have a complete license to do whatever I want to my body. And this is, it's a very strong part of the American ethos, the U.S. mythology of freedom, is that I don't have to wear a damn helmet or a seatbelt if I don't want to. It's all up to me. I'm completely unfettered, and I don't owe anyone or anything. There's no public health interest in my health that I have to heed. And I think, you think of ownership in terms of permanence, and yet I think there's elements of our modern throwaway society that may be affecting and infecting that ownership relationship with our own bodies. So, we know that things are built for planned obsolescence. I know a lot of people who would consider themselves down on their luck if they weren't getting a new iPhone every year. And so, I'm concerned that we can kind of apply the iPhone mentality to our bodies, even though it makes no sense. We can always buy a new iPhone, we can always buy a new car, but we understand this body is ours for life. And so ownership feels like it would be a pretty responsible place to be. I've got to take care of this thing because it's mine, in perpetuity. And it's certainly better than renting or being separate from. And so ownership of our bodies, when you own something, it has no rights and you have all the rights. It has no agency and you have all the agency. If you can imagine yourself being owned, you wouldn't like it very much. And so there's this very heavy top-down relationship that can occur when we are owning our bodies. So let's sort of hold that thought and move on to the next level, which Monica G refers to in her book, Thus Spoke the Plants, and that's stewardship. And again, this is a phrase, a word dripping with religious connotations. So when I'm a steward of something, oh my God, it's Josh. Josh, you watching? You want to join us? Yeah, Josh says it's just a tool, not a friend. Yeah, very, very much so. But so it's stewardship is, it's not mine, but it's in my care. So that if we're stewards over the earth, we don't just get to do with it what we please. Josh, shall I Skype you and bring you in? So but it's sorry, it's a higher responsibility. Stewardship is. So, in the book of Genesis, when God tells Adam and Eve that you are, stewards over this, you don't own it, you can't destroy it, you don't own it to be able to dominate it or do what you please over it. See if we can get. Yeah. All right. So let's see if we can bring Josh in to this conversation. Let's see. Let's try that. See if that button works. Can you guys hear the happy Skype music?
Hey, bud.
Hey, you home?
Yeah, actually, I was just about to go into the gym, and I was checking Facebook, and I saw you were live, so I was like, oh, I bet he's got something smart to listen to.
Oh, I'm touched.
So I was checking you out. I was about to go into the gym and sit in the sauna and listen to you on Facebook.
Oh well.
But yeah. I'm happy to visit as well.
Yeah, so it's just a tool, not a friend, is what you wrote. So I can finish. Yeah, I've got like 10 minutes before I have to get on a coaching call. But what do you? And I'll finish.
You were talking about like when you own like the dynamic, like how the sentiment of owning your body.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like a tool. Like if you think of it in that sense, it's like a tool. Mm-hmm. Right? It's just a machine for you to use however you want because you own it, like your four-wheeler. It's my four-wheeler. If I want to try and jump the ditch with it, that's what I'm gonna do with it. And that's the way. If we think about it as just a tool, it's hard to think of it like the organic friend, like the alive, fleshy, like friend that it really is. And to have that relationship with your body is something completely different. But to think of it less like a tool and more like a friend is exactly like how I think of my body now.
So did you have to transition from one to the other?
I think it just of course. But yes, absolutely.
So yes. When did that happen and how did it happen?
I would say that, so the point in my slideshow where I show that ice chest full of meat to be prepped. Mm-hmm. At that point in my life still, I was using my body kind of as like a tool to lose weight. Like I could use my body's job was to get its ass up and go sweat off all this crappy food I know I'm still eating. Right? And it was nothing more than that, just the machine. For me to control and get down and whittle it down to something that was presentable externally to the world.
Right.
Whereas that moment in the Crescent City Classic when I found myself facing BJ and throwing everything else to the wind, like nothing mattered. Running wasn't a calculated thing to lose weight anymore at that point. It became something bigger. And I wound up, instead of using my body to lose weight, I'll use my body for the very first time to like do something I love, which in that moment was trying to close the gap between me and BJ because she was running away from me. And it was like in that moment though, I felt a warmth about my relationship with my body and where it could go from here.
Yeah, and you've talked to me about how like you talk about yourself as a team. So like your body is now your partner.
Yeah.
Right. Like Elizabeth writes, sometimes we take better care of our cars than our bodies, and I know people for whom their cars are their friends. Right? Yeah. They would never dream of like jumping the ditch or doing anything. They just
on a lawnmower. I know dudes that have shoved Big Macs in their mouth, but they won't use their lawnmower right now because the grass is wet and it might mess up the pulleys underneath the deck.
Right. So I think, especially like men and engines, is like
Yeah.
this, like, what do you need, baby?
Yeah.
Right? It's not like, what are you going to do for me? Keep my grass short. It's like, what do you need? Let's keep you purring.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Um, yeah, I'm curious what you think. Like, I'll go over the last three levels. So the next one up was like this stewardship,
Hmm.
where it's like a higher responsibility, but still, when I think of being a steward, like in
Yeah.
terms of like the Bible, the Genesis, the Garden of Eden story, it's still we are the ones who know best, and we have to take care of this thing that's less than. Like we have to
Yeah.
take care of the animals. We have to like, and the truth is, we don't need to take care of shit.
No, I see steward as more of like in the nautical sense. Maybe I'm wrong on the definition. I always thought a steward was like someone on a vessel helping
Hmm.
maintain and take care of that vessel, like to be a good steward of a. Like I thought a steward was a like a hand on a vessel, um, and
Yeah.
that always resonated with me, like being a good steward of this vessel. You know that because I tell you, like even though a boat is just technically a tool,
Huh. We
people,
we name them.
right? Oh, and it's like you can't change the name. There's all of these things like that are just unspoken rules about boats and stuff. Like in their woman, you always refer to them as ladies, and like it's yeah.
Yeah,
Some
and here's what I got um, from reading about people, people who sail for a living or who like fishermen or trawlers, is that there comes a point, and the Canadian songwriter. What's his name? Stan Rogers wrote these beautiful sea shanties about working on boats. It was that, and this is, I think, the next level, a partnership where the boat has something to say to them,
Yeah,
where the boat has intelligence, where it's not okay, I'm the steward, I'm going to take care of this thing that can't take care
right.
of itself, but
Sure.
now we're in partnership, and it has intelligence, it has sentience, it has worth, and it has a voice to listen.
Yeah.
Like when we think of our bodies as like, maybe instead of it's us taking care of our bodies, maybe we just kind of get out of the way and let our bodies take care of us too.
Right. Yes, that's the surrender to. That's I talk about surrender a lot in my life, and that's what I see myself surrendering to. That I'm not at the helm, the man behind the curtain, like at the Wizard of Oz. Some like a bigger force is taking care of all of that, not me.
Mm-hmm.
To surrender, to let all of those cells reproduce, and like the cells to duplicate, and like all of these things that happen, the germs and the microbiota doing whatever they do, and like tissue growing and regrowing and tearing. I don't need to micromanage all of that. I need to live the most authentic version of a human life I can muster up in this crazy world, and let Mother Nature do the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Generally.
Yeah. Well, and that brings me to my last level, which I'm a little shy to talk about, but it's lover. Like
Yeah.
we, so when your body becomes the, it's not just a thing, it's not separate, but it's a, containing the energy of the universe.
Uh-huh.
It's Mother Nature. There's a way in which that our wills, our minds, and our bodies can become lovers. To tell me what feels good, tell me where it
Yeah.
hurts, tell me like to become enmeshed in this way that is like a spiritual union. And
Yeah.
I've seen you there in ultra marathons
Yeah.
where it's not fun. It's not like being a lover to someone is not like a honeymoon. It's
No. Yeah, of
it's
course.
it's the slides. It's the tears at mile 82 too.
Sure, of course. Yeah. Yeah. It's all of that, you know. It's all of that. Being able to just I don't know how to explain um like the warm feelings that I truly do. Like I have like the warm feelings that I have for myself that were never there before in my life.
Right, and they would be sort of irrational or egotistical if they weren't framed in this way.
Yeah.
It's like, I love myself. Like, Elizabeth just wrote something beautiful. Being human is a way for the universe to know itself.
Yeah.
Right. And then I think, quoting Carl Sagan, we are all star stuff.
Yes, we are. That's another thing. That's what Hole did for me. Like Hole started the extrapolation, but I went further all the way to like out into, the nebulae, like to the whole goddamn universe. Like we are all the same. We're made up of the same things in different shapes and colors and stuff, but we're all sharing the same thing. To see ourselves, it's scary to think of us as all connected as deeply as we actually are, because we like to think more individually.
Yeah.
I get it. I struggle with the same thought myself.
I'm going to cut it short here because I got to be on the coaching call in like 2 minutes.
All right,
But you go to enjoy the gym. Thank you for jumping on and
hey, thanks.
for as always dropping wisdom and insight.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, it was good seeing you this weekend.
I'm gonna go sweat in the sauna for a little while.
Enjoy.
Later. Bye.
Bye.